Conservative government is cutting new infrastructure funding by 87% for the next 2 years. And the answer is that despite what our Prime Minister has to say, the economy is not his top priority, electioneering is. So the main thing he is focused on is being able to go into the next election saying he eliminated the deficit that his government created in 2008. And because of this, important federal investments are being delayed for years. And that's despite the fact that Action Now would generate economic growth and help middle-class families, economic investments in First Nations education, for example, that have been announced, also are being delayed until after the election. And that is that's an issue of inequality that is simply not acceptable. So I'm just going to show you. This is Mr. Harper announced a 10-year fund for new infrastructure, Build Canada Fund. We appreciate that there is a 10-year program, but this is what he's actually done. This is new funding for Building Canada Fund. All of the governments of all stripes have had new infrastructure funding that they use to partner with the province and the municipalities. And this is what's happening to that infrastructure spending. It is falling off a cliff. And for 2 years, it's an 87% drop from what the new infrastructure funding was previously. It's not until 2019 that it builds back to the place that it is today. So that's not widely understood, and I think that's a very important aspect of the infrastructure funding for Canadians to understand, because it affects people, it affects jobs, and it affects our municipalities and our provinces' ability to invest in critical infrastructure. So the new Building Canada Fund is a 10-year plan, as I said, but it is completely backloaded for political reasons. So in fact, for the next 2 years, this fund will have only $210 million a year for the entire country. And I just want to put that into perspective. When British Columbia and Vancouver decided that the SkyTrain line out to the airport, the Canada line, was a priority, the Paul Martin government committed $500 million, and that was essential partnership for that SkyTrain, that public transit, to go ahead. And how glad we are as a province and a city and a country that we've done that. That's $500 million. That's more than 2 times as much as the entire Building Canada Fund for the whole country for 2 years. So I wanted to put it into perspective, because we have very critical projects in Vancouver, in Metro Vancouver, like the Massey Tunnel replacement, like the Broadway corridor expansion of SkyTrain, the Surrey SkyTrain expansion, the Patello Bridge repair or probably replacement. These are critical pieces of infrastructure investment that we need in Metro Vancouver that will be delayed because of this government's electioneering influence on its budgeting. So I'm here today to say that the Broadway corridor expansion of SkyTrain must go forward. Now, why do we need that corridor linked to UBC? UBC generates more than $10 billion in economic activity every year. And the new SkyTrain link from Broadway and Commercial will connect jobs and innovation centers in Metro Vancouver, making this one of Canada's most important infrastructure corridors. And I just wanted, as an aside, to say, when we proceed with the Broadway SkyTrain link to UBC, we must take the lessons that were learned during the Cambie construction period that were so devastating to local businesses, and we must mitigate and prevent those kinds of problems. The Broadway SkyTrain corridor is a top priority for our city of Vancouver and the province. And I'll quote our mayor, Gregor Robertson, who said, "We will see companies from all over the world coming to Vancouver if there's good connectivity. The cities we compete with globally in technology are well connected and are investing in rapid transit, and we need to keep pace." so it will have a nationally significant economic impact. That's the words of our mayor. And so this expansion just makes good economic sense. In the short run, it will create jobs. In the long run, it will create jobs in construction, transportation, in manufacturing, and it will address our need to reduce emissions and reduce the cars on the road. So we just need to look at the economic benefits of our life sciences and other UBC sectors that are innovative to know that if we act now, there will be benefits for Vancouver, for British Columbia, and for Canada. So a part of this context that I also want to highlight is the failure of this government to implement what they announce. So this Building Canada Fund was announced more than a year ago. And just 2 weeks ago, the government said that they will put the parameters in place. So in fact, they have not even put together the criteria and the framework for implementing this fund that they announced a year ago. And now we see that there is this major drop-off over the next 2 years. This is similar to the education for Aboriginal peoples, the plan that was announced to finally make equitable the amount of funding for on-reserve education, which has been underfunded for years. That plan was announced to great fanfare, but the funding does not come until after the election. So there's two things. There's the political electioneering based on balancing the budget at expense of First Nations, cities, and infrastructure, but there's also an incompetence and an inability to deliver that I see every day in my portfolio as the Liberal Party critic for national defense. Every single one of the major equipment procurement projects is in trouble. The timelines are not being met, the budget is inadequate, in many cases the capacity isn't there to deliver, and the requirements don't fit the budget. So we have all of our major shipbuilding, planes, and vehicle projects are in a state of disarray right now. And that's jobs, it's safety and risk issues for our men and women in uniform, and it's very costly to the industry members in Canada when their projects are put on hold for years, and in some cases eventually canceled outright at great expense to the bidders. So the absence of consultations when this government moves forward is a part of their failures and incompetence. And last week, the president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities said that a lack of meaningful consultation has led to serious design flaws in the Build Canada Fund. The mayors of Vancouver and Calgary have said that the fund needs major fixes. So the Liberal Party believes that infrastructure funding should not be pushed aside and delayed by crass political calculations, and that's why our members recently passed a resolution calling for major infrastructure investments of up to 1% of gross domestic product of Canada. So I'll just wrap up by saying that in the long run, infrastructure improves the quality of life, reduces traffic gridlock and all of the productivity costs thereof, shortens commute times, can mitigate negative effects of climate change, makes our drinking water safer, and makes Canada a more attractive place to live and invest. And so slashing the Building Canada Fund is not the way to move forward. So thank you very much for your interest in this issue, and I welcome any questions.